We have two very special guests in the studio today. Let's check out the brand new hand-wired Cub from Bad Cat Amplifiers. Hi everyone, Kieran here in the Guitar studio, and I am joined, which I'm very excited about today, by Jack Griffiths, who has very kindly travelled up on a very early morning flight today.
Yeah, it is a pleasure, but my face might not show it straight away because I'm pretty tired already. It was I got out of my bed at 2:30 this morning.
To come and rock hard for all you people.
But yeah, we're here to rock. We are here to rock. And
That's the thing.
to,
That and the coffee is going to wake you up today, certainly.
Coffee's working great, and we've got some volume in the room, which also is a good. That kicks you up the arse a little bit.
It's going to help me as well, absolutely. But yeah, thanks so much.
So let's go.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, Jack. As
Pleasure.
I mentioned in the intro there, we've got a bit of a world exclusive, which I'm certainly very excited about as well. But why don't you introduce it? Because you're a little bit more familiar with this than me.
So yeah, it's my great privilege to be up in Glasgow today. This evening we're doing a clinic in the Guitar store. But the guys kindly invited me to come and shoot some content in the day. And it happened to coincide that the guys said, great news, we've managed to get hold of a new prototype that just happened to be here. They managed to get it just in time for the clinic. And we thought it would make sense to kind of chat about it in this video as well. So what you're going to hear, first and foremost, is the Cub 5, which I have to state straight off the bat, will not look exactly like this in production. This is so early and so kind of primitive, if you like, that this is a new chassis in basically an old head shell. So it looks like Bad Cats of yesteryear, but the circuit is entirely new. And in just having a very brief playthrough of it in this room, this is the first time I've seen it as well, and first time I've plugged into it, I'm liking it.
Oh, I'm loving it as well. It's because I've had a small sort of experience with Bad Cat, and actually we have had another privilege of actually speaking to John of Bad Cat as well. Ray did an interview with him,
Nice.
and he did subtly mention this, and he certainly seemed so excited about it. And a little behind the scenes as well, he did say that the Cub 5 was on its way, and it was going to kind of blow everyone's socks off. And I think I can agree, certainly this morning with just hearing Jack kind of mess around with that. I've had a little mess around with it myself as well. That this is just pure Valve goodness, I guess, is maybe the cliff notes right at the top here is that.
That is the headline, really.
There's no compromise. It's, we're not talking any modelling, which you guys can argue about in the comments, of course. We're not here to settle that debate. We're here to talk about this guy today.
Well, what this is, in my estimation, is kind of, this is where Bad Cat was always going to go again. So for anyone who is unaware, Bad Cat's been around for decades at this point, and they really got their start by, they happened to be in the golden era of the resurgence of Valve amplifiers, when boutique became a big thing. And they were at the forefront of designing those great circuits, mostly kind of AC inspired, that kind of thing. But back in the day, this is exactly what they would do. They would just have these hand-wired, really simple, but really interesting and uniquely charactered Valve amplifiers.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's not been until the recent resurgence again in the last couple of years with the designs that Peter Ahrens was doing for Bad Cat, which is where we saw once again a Cub and the Black Cat, the Hot Cat, the Lynx, and so on.
Yep.
Those amps were slightly different, and they kind of gave Bad Cat a little bit more of a mass market appeal. They're still in that boutique realm, but they took that knowledge and applied it to. It kind of made it more useful and accessible for a greater range of guitar players.
Which was kind of an interesting, because that's a really good point that you made there, Jack, obviously, in terms of, I'd always perceived Bad Cat as, as you said, very AC inspired. They're very, kind of, they're not sort of shoeboxed in, certainly with one tone, but you kind of knew what you were getting with it, and in a beautiful package. But I think when I saw that Tosin Abasi, had moved on to, he'd went back to playing actual valve amps, and he was using a combination of, I think it was the Black Cat and the Lynx,
Yeah.
which sort of got me scratching my head a bit, because I was like, well, hold on, what's he doing with those? But then, of course, actually hearing the vast amount of sounds that you can get from those amps made them much more, mass market appeal, I guess, if we'll kind of call it that, but also just like so much more versatile as well in terms of genres. It's you're not just playing your sparkly cleans with it. You can gent if you need to.
Yeah, and also previously it was they were a bit of an enigma, because you knew of them, but you didn't see them, particularly here in the UK, that often. And the only real exposure I remember having to the brand, first of all, was Stephen Wilson, who was playing the Lynx, still is, in fact. Awesome, progressive, kind of fairly heavy guitar player.
Absolutely.
So again, that's a different turn than the 90s, noughties era of Bad Cat that we were initially familiar with, where it was a bit more sparkly and a bit cleaner tones. So you could tell they were moving in this more contemporary direction, and that's what ultimately led to that awesome line of amplifiers, which is still in existence and will still continue to be.
Yeah.
The Cub that people have come to know of the last couple of years is still going to be a thing.
Yes.
But this new hand-wired one, this is where I was always hoping, okay, they've laid a great foundation here, but maybe just a slight return to the roots, and just with a little more of a modern touch. And that's what the Cub 5 represents really, really well, in my opinion. So to kind of give, I don't want to get into the realm of comparing point for point the current edition of the Cub with the Cub 5, purely because they're not intended to be, this isn't intended to be a replacement. They're meant to coexist. So the Cub, as it currently stands in the current lineup, there's a few features on there that I always thought they're fantastic features, like the 2 master volumes. Really simple tone stack. Simple, you've just got one volume control, so one gain control essentially for clean and overdrive. So the Cub is the most primitive, the most simple amplifier. So it makes sense that they would then just strip it back even further in this Cub 5. So what you've got here, as opposed to where you've got the clean and overdrive on the previous edition, you've now just got one channel, but you can foot switch between 2 different preamp valves.
Which we've, even in our small kind of, getting to grips with the amp before hitting record, have noticed just what kind of, we'll obviously touch on them a little bit later as well, but noticing which one kind of suits certain guitars, which one suits certain situations as well. So despite it being obviously a 1-channel amplifier, it's incredibly versatile. Like that's one thing I've always I really loved about the Cub whenever I played it, was just, you can throw in a couple of kind of basic pedals in the chain, and you can kind of get anything you need really out of it, within the realms of how much gain you can obviously get out of this amplifier. But it's been so much fun. That's kind of, I think, my takeaways, immediately, slight spoiler alert, is how fun this amp is just when you get plugged in, and we've definitely got it at a semi kind of room shaking volume right now, but not enough that our ears are going to start bleeding. So.
Yeah, it's not crazy. It's 40 watts, but there's that kind of old adage of, well, what difference does hand wiring make? Whatever it does, it just seems to open up a circuit audibly, and just playing it. So we're running it through the 112 cab of the Cub combo below it. It's only a 112, but it sounds huge. So
it's crazy the amount of bass we're getting out of this.
And it's 40 watts, so that's, I think they've kind of struck the right balance between, you get some of that kind of big iron, big transformer sensibility in the low end. And the other thing that's added to this amp that isn't on the other Cub is this depth control. So in conjunction with the 2 different preamp options, you've got this depth control, which is a 4-step rotary control.
Yeah.
And it just has the most unreal effect on the low end.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, while we're on that topic there, let's hear it in action.
Sure. So do you want to start with the skinniest setting maybe, and
I'll just start notching you up as as we're kind of going up.
Yeah, great. So I'll put it in the skinniest mode, so that the least amount of depth. So it actually affects the gain level too.
Yeah.
Slightly. I think it's some kind of bypass for the EQ stack.
Yeah.
So the more the more depth you're adding, it feels like the more gain is actually being filtered into the circuit.
It is almost, it feels like it's definitely pushing kind of a little bit of the preamp there as well as you were saying with the EQ stack as well. But there's always a sort of, the sound in the room, kind of chat. And that's not obviously what you guys are going to be hearing. We've got this mic'd up with a 57 and a 27 right now. As Jack said, we're going through the 1x12 speaker of the Cub, just the kind of standard Cub you can get. But there was just, I don't know, that sound was just filling the room there. As soon as we started kind of going up from the skinniest to the most depth, I guess, there was just, the sound was kind of all-encompassing there as well. And it's just, I don't know about you, but certainly whenever I have an experience with an amp like this as well, it kind of affects my playing. It's like you start working with the amp, and not that it's obviously dictating what we're doing, but it does kind of just, it leans you in a certain way,
Yeah, I think it suggests to you that you should pay a bit more attention to what it's doing.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. So to me, these are the features I like. I personally never used the overdrive setting in the standard Cub. A lot of people do and love it, but I always just stayed on the clean channel and loved how alive it felt.
Oh yeah.
So the fact that this is carrying that forward and just expanding it a little more, that's exactly what this feature set suggests to me. And this, immediately I was drawn to this depth control, and I found that my personal setting that I like the most is the second, because it just has the right amount of, it retains the sparkle. So if I'm playing really soft, it's still airy.
Yep.
But then if I dig in a little bit and put on the EF86 valve in the preamp, it has loads of body still, but without getting bloated.
Yes.
So that's the same channel. There's nothing happening gain-wise there. All I did was change to the other preamp valve and the same depth setting, and just by changing the way I'm playing, the amp is kind of suggesting to me, right, this sound, maybe you want to lean in a little more.
Give it a little bit more beans going in there.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that I, when I was kind of somewhat given the brief on this amplifier, was, one of the kind of main highlights was one channel. To which I love one-channel amps myself, but, like when you do maybe need that extra step up as well, that's obviously when you need to start incorporating pedals. But it's quite crazy that even just a preamp control there can almost act as like your rhythm channel and your clean channel as well, and that's completely determined by dynamics, as well as obviously the changing to the different preamp. But how crazy that is going to react with different guitars, as well, I think is just one really cool thing. Because that depth control there, say for the Les Paul that you're playing just now, having that on the second notch of the depth really, really suits that guitar. It really, really suits what Jack's going for just now. But say, for example, we do plug in like the Strat or something, you might want a little bit more body with that. So the fact that there is several options for that without you having to actually get in and completely change the EQ is a bit of a game changer, I feel, on that. And depending on the volume that we're going to be using for masters as well, is Jack was using that there for kind of kicking up to that next level of gain. Just we've got it down just ever so slightly.
Yeah.
But if we were to say switch to another guitar, humbucker single coils or something like that, that's you got just two completely different settings without you actually having to change things. Which
yeah, you're right. It does help you out with changing guitars, but also I feel like it makes better use of the feature set that the standard Cub had anyway.
Yes.
So specifically the two master volumes. Previously, you'd kind of think, well, what can I do with 2 volume levels? It's just going to be loud and louder for a solo boost or something.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, what I found is by having the gain lower, where it's kind of clean, when you do go to the EF86, you do get this volume bump.
Yes.
So it's nice to have the option to switch to the second master and bring the volume down. So for example, when I'm on the 12AX7 on Master 1 with the volume higher, it's big and open and clean and uncompressed. Now if I was to play at that volume level on the EF86, it might be a bit too loud and spiky, so I can just switch over to the second master at a lower level and switch to the other valve, and suddenly I get way more dynamic control. So it's a little more useful. Like I say, it takes better use of the features of the amp, I think. If you just take time to think about, well, okay, how can I, like you said, you use the right word, the dynamics.
Yes.
How can I make best use of my dynamics as a player? And the features that this affords you, I think, allows you to do that a little bit better.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's one of those things with an amp like this that as soon as you get it up to, a volume where it kind of is cooking a little bit, is those changes in dynamics, it almost brings something kind of out of you. Like just, we talked about kind of playing with what the amp is giving you, and it's sort of steering you in a slight direction there as well. But it's one of the things that I particularly love as well, is just like when you get into one of these amplifiers and it does make you focus on, maybe the intensity of your notes, the sort of the way, all those kind of smaller techniques that maybe aren't translated with, say solid state or modelers and stuff. Not to say that they're not great, because they've got all of their, their place in the guitar world.
Yeah.
But I mean, come on now. There's something magical about this right now.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
It is a different game, and it just makes you, I find it makes you focus a little bit more on the way you play. When you have fewer options, but you have to, if you want a greater range of tones, you have to develop them yourself in your hands. So that's something I particularly like about this. However, I must say my favourite thing about this Cub 5 is this. Just going to turn that delay off for a sec.
The lovely sounds of an analog reverb.
In case that just sounded like I forgot how to play for a moment there, what I wanted to stress was proper spring reverb is now in this amp. It's a nice short tank spring, which I had no problem with the reverb that was in any of the current line of Bad Cat amps, but it was a digital reverb.
Yes.
A very good one, but I'm a reverb guy. I just like to have a spring all the time, not doing much, but just chilling out there in the background,
giving us a little bit of room. That's all we need.
And this is a particularly nice one. So it's just one control, really simple. Even there about 9, 10 o'clock, it's just got enough body, but it still stays out of the way. So I can play quite kind of percussive, aggressive stuff, and it doesn't feel like the reverb is choking me up.
Like hearing that trail there, it's by no means is it a small reverb, but you hit on that perfectly there, that it stays out of the way.
It's controlled.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were previously augmenting that with a slapback delay that's in the effects loop, which was just adding this. Not a huge amount, but also extending it to the upper ranges. It does really have, people talk about that Fender reverb thing. It's not just exclusive to Fender, I have to say, you can just, if it's voiced right for the amp circuit, then you get a really magical thing happening and you can just kind of get lost in it. it's just perfectly voiced for this amp. It's not super splashy like a Fender Reverb might be. It's just got its own thing, but it's all just there on that one control. And even with the overdrive, if I go to the EF86, I'll drop the master again, so just to control the volume a bit. But with a bit of drive, the reverb still isn't getting in the way too much. I mean, if you like reverb, that is.
Oh, and I love I was having a great time there.
Yeah, not
smashing.
everybody does, and I don't fully trust those people who don't like reverb.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a conversation for another time as well. But I do agree with you that it's just like that little bit of kind of just rounding things off with a little bit of verb on there. It's great, and especially because that was quite a surprise there when you switched over to that, we'll call it our gain sort of channel for right now. Because usually what you find is as soon as you throw something, a bit of reverb on with gain, you either get completely washed out or the reverb just isn't there. Which strike that perfect balance, even when you were kind of doing some stabbier chords there as well, is, I wouldn't be opposed to having that on my rhythm channel as well. And yeah, it's just got that that sort of bloom to it as well that just is so lovely to just hear, especially when you let the trail just go on as well. Which, I mean, I think the guys at Bad Cat are going to have a bit of a problem with them getting their hands back on this amp, but no, don't worry, I'm going to give it back, boys. That's all good.
Well, I'm going to put up a similar fight, actually.
I think we're going to have a Hell in a Cell cage match or something like that to see who's getting away with it. But you obviously mentioned that you're a fan of the Cub, and would this be the kind of way that you would set this up, say, for, any gig that you needed to play, or?
Yeah, for me, like I said before, I don't tend to use amp gain that much, especially for gigging situation, live situation. And a lot of people do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Bad Cat more than have you covered if you like your gain to come from the amp. But for me, I just always find it more flexible and actually have a more focused sound using just a big clean sound I'm not talking like pristine Roland jazz chorus, which is a glorious sound, but to me, gain about 10, 11 o'clock right there with fairly low output humbuckers, I'm very happy there, that kind of level of gain. Because I can still back off from that and be soft. Or I can really lean into it, and particularly on single notes, it just kind of pops out in a nice upper mid kind of way. And that is just the right cusp of gain.
Yeah.
It's on the gain envelope to accept any pedal that you want to put on there. So we just grabbed a couple of very common overdrives.
Yeah.
So we've got a Tube Screamer and a Blues Driver. The Boss Blues Driver, set up for kind of moderate gain into that sound, does this. So people might say, well, why don't you just get that sound out of the amp if that's the sound you like? The point of doing it from a pedal is that, one, it's much easier to change any flavor you like.
Yep.
So if one day you're sick of your Blues Driver, you get something else, easy peasy.
Switch out.
The other thing is that in a live situation, a pedal kind of has a slightly narrower frequency response than amp gain does.
Yep.
Which, when you're playing by yourself, sometimes that's not that pleasant. But when you're in a band mix, that's perfect. You just want to find your little niche in the frequency spectrum and cut right through.
Live there.
Exactly. Now, the opposite end of that spectrum would be to use the gain from the amp, which I'm not opposed to doing at all. But if I show you so if I go to the EF86, I'll turn to the second master so it's a bit lower, and we'll turn the gain up just to show what kind of gain levels you can get
Yeah.
out of the amp. Nice. So it's not a huge amount of gain, which is, again, is why I always liked the Cub, the standard version of the Cub anyway. But there's enough there to get nice rhythm sound.
Yeah, you can. I mean, if God forbid if your pedals went down, you know, there's enough in there to get you through a gig, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I totally agree with you in that sense that like amp gain is absolutely great. You know, especially amps like this as well. They sound absolutely magic when you kind of just start to open them up and let them do their thing. But to have an interchangeable sort of, you know, option in pedals and whatnot is just, that's the way I certainly would do it. Is just, you know, and especially with having a platform like this that gives you kind of scope to go up and down as well. I think that's,
Yes.
you hit on that really good in terms of like, it's not a pristine clean when we're sitting at this sort of level, because you still want to be able to, you know, get it cleaner if you wanted to. You want to get it more distorted if you wanted to, depending on the situation, of course. But I think that we've been kind of using a couple of pedals beforehand as well, and it takes pedals really well. Like that's one of the things I've noticed on some of the other Bad Cat stuff as well, is just that they accept pedals right into the front end, no bother at all, and whether that be a Blues Driver, a Tube Screamer, or, you know, I mean, we might, when the cameras stop rolling, plug in one of the two HM2s that we've got on the shelf there, but that's, you know, we'll save that for another
I did wonder
time.
why there were two of them.
I mean, you always need two going at the same time, right? That means more chainsaw, you know?
Fair enough. That's how they do it up in Scotland.
That's it, yeah. The poor boy doesn't know what he's got himself into right now, certainly, but...
So yeah, back to sensible gain levels conversation for a moment. So you're exactly right. It's the sweet spot. It's also to do with just the way the amp is built. So cathode biased power section means that you kind of get, I don't know what it is, you know, scientifically, but to me it's always the voicing that I've kind of felt most inclined to is that cathode bias thing, because it just feels full all the time, even when you have a nice shimmery bright sound. So if I turn the depth control all the way to the lowest setting, even turn the bass down a little bit and just stay on the bridge pickup. Yeah, if I really dig in, it's going to be ice picky, which I'm not going to do. But you get all this high-end detail as well as like the feeling, the warm feeling of valves, which you don't really get out of a lot of fixed bias valve amps. And what that combination gives you, I find, is really good articulation for single notes.
Yeah.
Kind of, rather than just having to play chords to sound big, you can just play single notes and it just speaks in this really specific kind of way. That's my kind of personal takeaway from it anyway.
No, yeah, it's a very good point on that, because, I mean, touching just on what you said in terms of like sound making, you know, needing chords to sound big, I think there is somewhat of a demystifying sometimes, maybe if somebody does plug into an amp, that you're not getting that from single notes, you know, especially on like a kind of clean / moving into crunch territory. Is there, the last thing you want is for your amp to sound anemic when you go to just single note stuff. You don't want to just be playing big cowboy chords for you to actually be projected, and this is not struggling to do that in any sort of way. And you know, even when you were on the middle pickup of the Les Paul there as well, or the middle position, sorry, for both pickups, that was still giving levels of sparkliness, but with arpeggios, everything was punching. Like we were living in this space where nothing was getting lost, everything was really articulate, and it's just a hell of a lot of fun to play. It would seem like it's an absolute winner, which, you know, we threw in a couple of kind of drives and stuff like that in as well, but I guess maybe can turn up for anyone who is curious about how it handles, you know, with the effects, like we can turn up the delay if we need to for that, because it's, I'll even very quickly just give you a little bit more there, just.
I'm personally not really an effects loop guy. It's not my go-to, and that's why I've always liked the Bad Cat thing, because you can just plug delays and reverbs into the front, and it's absolutely fine. But the way this loop is designed, it's just got the nice thing of staying out of the way. It doesn't feel like it messes with the core tone. Which is so easy to do, especially with a tone that's kind of as interesting and articulate as this. It would be very easy for an effects loop in particular to mess that up. But if I turn the delay off and turn it back on, there's no kind of buffering issues there or impedance issues. It just handles it really, really nicely.
Yeah, it's I'm exactly the same as you, where it's like, go right into the front. I never really bother about effects loops, but it's only when I've used some other tube amps that exactly that. It's kind of, it starts tripping over itself a little bit, and it affects the tone of the actual amplifier, but it's cool to know that you've got the options, you know, if you just want to go straight into the front, or you've got like a multi-effects or something like that, then you're absolutely sorted with it as well. But yeah, it's such a pleasure to listen to, I think, is one of the kind of key things with it. It's, you know, I don't want to speak for yourself, but I think you're having a great time with it as well, just in terms of what it's actually giving you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, I think we've really kind of like want to hammer home the fact that this isn't a replacement for the standard Cub, I guess, if we want to call it that. You know, that's still such a viable amp. It's such a great amp as well. But this is just, if you want that extra flavour, if you want something ever so slightly different, and, you know, I don't want to say that hand-wired is the purist's form, but it's, you kind of touched on it right at the start of the video, it's almost a callback to the way that these amps were produced, you know, when they were first coming out as a boutique format, you know.
Yeah, I just want to check, so this might not be good for the video, I'm not sure, but I think, yeah, these are 84s, whereas I think the Cub, well, I'll just clarify. For the one crucial difference, which we neglected to mention so far, is this is running EL84s now, so that kind of contributes more to that chime. The standard Cub, if you like, runs 34s, EL34s. So it had, if I was to characterize the differences, the standard Cub has more of a strong, like thicker, lower mid-range, which works great for single coils, works great for humbuckers, works great if you want to use the overdrive, the built-in overdrive. But this having the EL84s and the cathode bias just means it's a little bit more open, and that's such a lame term, but that's just thrown about so much with guitar tones. It's open and beautiful and breathy.
It's okay, we haven't said chewy yet, so we're okay.
I'm not going to use that one. But it is chewy as well.
Yes,
it is. It's like
ding ding ding.
It's like you just sunk your teeth into a Mars bar. But it's the right counterpoint. So if you already like the standard Cub, but you just like myself had certain things you thought, I wish they just went this direction a little more, like the True Spring reverb, a little bit wider range on the gain control just from one channel. I would never have thought to put the two different preamp valves in there and have them foot switchable.
No, that seems like a game changer. In all honesty, that's if that's not the headline kind of point of it, it should be one of the headlines, which I'm sure Bad Cat are going to scream about as soon as this gets its final housing, I guess. Because again, really to reiterate, this is such a prototype that this is not the house that's going to come in. So you're very lucky getting a bit of a first-hand look at it, and we feel very generous, or are very lucky, as well, for the generosity of Bad Cat is what I was trying to say there. But it's been tons of fun, and we'll have, obviously, we'll do a little section here where we'll just do a little bit more playing and whatnot, but I think that kind of covers most stuff that we want to touch on, certainly with this hand-wired version of the Cub 5. It's been a pleasure having you, obviously, here, Jack. I really do appreciate you coming up for the studio, and I can't wait for the clinic tonight, actually, as well, which
should be a lot of fun.
We should have, by the time this goes up, I think we should have a video as well that we'll link to above and in the description and whatnot. But
great.
I'll do my sign-off, and I'll let Jack just kind of take us away in the next clip. But obviously, thank you so much for checking out the video. If you have liked it at all, give us a like and a subscribe. It does help the channel, and we will link all of Jack's socials down below as well, because he's got his YouTube and his Instagram and whatnot. And I'm sure you've got some very cool things coming on the horizon as well, man. So we do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and play for us. But until next time, I've been Kieran, and this has been Jack. This has just been a quick look at the Bad Cat Cub 5. Have a great day.
Cheers.